Hello my preschool friends and welcome to our storytime video. Today's story is The Three Little Javelinas. Now, what do you think this book is about just based on this front picture? What about the name, The Three Little Javelinas? Now, we might not know what a Javelinas is, but it sounds very similar to a previous book that we've read before that had to do with three little brothers building houses. Do you think this book is going to be the same as The Three Little Pigs? Well, we will find out. As always through the story, I'm going to be asking questions you guys can answer. But let's get started and read this book. This is The Three Little Javelinas, written by Susan Lowell and illustrated by Jim Harris. The Three Little Javelinas, written by Susan Lowell and illustrated by Jim Harris. Once upon a time, way out in the desert, there were three little Javelinas. Javelinas are wild, hairy, southwestern cousins of pigs. Their heads were very hairy, their backs were hairy, and their bony legs, all the way down to their hard little hooves, were also very hairy. But their snouts were soft and pink. One day, the three little Javelinas trotted away to seek their fortunes. In this hot, dry land, the sky was almost always blue. Steep purple mountains looked down in the desert where the cactus forests grew. Soon the little Javelinas came to a spot where the path divided, and each went a different way. The first little Javelina wandered lazily along. He didn't see a dust storm whirling across the desert until it caught him. The whirlwind blew away and left the first little Javelina sitting in a heap of tumbleweeds. Brushing himself off, he said, "I'll build a house with them." And in no time at all, he did. So what did the first Javelina build his house out of? Yeah, tumbleweeds. Look at his little house made of tumbleweeds. Do you think that's a sturdy house? Maybe. Well, I guess we'll find out. Then along came a coyote. He ran through the desert so quickly and so quietly that he was almost invisible. In fact, he was only one of Coyote's many magical tricks. This was only one of Coyote's many magical tricks. He laughed when he saw the tumbleweed house and smelled the Javelina inside. A tender, juicy little piggy, he thought. Coyote was tired of eating mice and rabbits. So who is the coyote like in another book? Who's the coyote supposed to be? Yeah, he's kind of like the big bad wolf, huh? Let's see if he does the same thing. He called out sweetly, little pig, come let me in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," shouted the first Javelina, who had a lot of hair on his chinny chin chin. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in," said Coyote. And he huffed, he puffed, and he blew the little tumbleweed house away. But in all the hullabaloo, the first little Javelina escaped and went looking for his brother and his sister. Coyote, who was very sneaky, tiptoed behind him. So is this very similar to another story? Yeah, how is it different? How is this story different from the Three Little Pigs so far? Yeah, we got a coyote and Javelinas instead. Are the little Javelinas building their house out of the same thing? They aren't yet. Well, let's see if that changes. The second little Javelina walked for miles among giant cactus plants called saguaros. They held their ripe red fruit high in the sky, but they made almost no shade, and the little Javelina grew very hot. Then he came upon a Native American woman who was gathering sticks from inside a dried-up cactus. She planned to use these long sticks called saguaro ribs to knock down the sweet cactus fruit. The second little Javelina said, "Please, may I have some sticks to build a house?" "Yes," she said, but in the language of her people. So the nice woman gave him like cactus sticks called saguaro, or Saguaros. I'm sorry, my friends. Some of these words I can't pronounce very well. But they're like the second pig in the Three Little Pigs stories. He's kind of using a type of sticks for his house. When he was finished building his house, he laid down in the shade. Then his brother arrived, panting from the heat. And the second little javelina moved over and made a place for him. Do you think that house is very sturdy? Is it sturdier than the last house? Yeah, it might be. What do you think is going to happen next? Well, let's find out. Pretty soon, Coyote found the Saguaro rib house. He used his magic to make his voice sound just like another javelina's. Little pig, let me in, he called. But the little javelinas were suspicious. The second one cried, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Bah, thought Coyote. I am not going to eat your hair. Then Coyote smiled, showing all of his sharp teeth. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. So he huffed, and he puffed, and all of the saguaro ribs came tumbling down. But the two little javelinas escaped into the desert. Still not discouraged, Coyote followed. Sometimes his magic did fail, but then he usually came up with another trick. What other trick do you think the Coyote is going to do? Oh, maybe. Let's find out. The third little javelina trotted through beautiful palo verde trees where green trunks and yellow flowers. She saw snakes sliding by, smooth as oil. A hawk floated around above her head. Then she came to a place where a man was making adobe bricks from mud and straw. The bricks lay on the ground, baking in the hot sun. The third little javelina thought for a moment and said, May I please have a few of the adobes to build a house? Sí, answered the man, which means yes in Spanish, the brickmaker's language. So what is the third little javelina going to make her house out of? Yeah, out of adobe, which is kind of like bricks. They're right here, but they're made of straw and mud and then dried. So they're very, very sturdy. So the third javelina built herself a solid little adobe house, cool in summer and warm in winter. When her brothers found her, she welcomed them and then locked the door behind them. But Coyote followed their trail. Little pig, come let me in, he called. The three little javelinas looked out the window. This time Coyote pretended to be very old and very weak, with no teeth and a sore paw. But they were not fooled. No, not by the hair of our chinny chin chins, they called back. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in, said Coyote. He grinned, thinking of the wild pig dinner to come. Just try it, shouted the third little javelina. So Coyote huffed and puffed, and the adobe bricks did not budge. Again, Coyote tried. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. The three little javelinos covered their hairy ears, but nothing happened. They decided to peek out the window. Do you think the Coyote is going to be successful in blowing down this house? How come? Oh, well, let's see. The tip of Coyote's raggedy tail whisked right past their noses. He was climbing up the tin roof. Next, Coyote used his magic to make himself very skinny. The stovepipe, gasped the third little javelina. Quickly, she lighted a fire inside her wood stove. What a feast it will be, Coyote said to himself. He squeezed into the stovepipe. I think I'll eat them with red-hot chili sauce. Whoosh! What do you think happened? Oh, let's see. Then the three little javelinas heard an amazing noise. It was not a bark, it was not a cackle, it was not a howl, it was not a scream. It was all of those sounds together. Yip, yap, yip, yow, wow, wow, wow! And away ran the Coyote in a puff of smoke shaped just like him. three little javelinas lived happily ever after in the adobe house. And if you ever hear Coyote's voice way out in the desert at night, well, you know what he's remembering. What do you think it is that he's remembering? Yeah, probably how he got burned by the stove. The end. Thank you so much, my friends, for listening and following along. What happened in this story that was similar to another that we've read? Yeah, it's very much like the Three Little Pigs. Is there anything different about this story? Yeah. Their houses were a little bit different, and it was a coyote instead of a big bad wolf. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, my friends, for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.